Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my hidden gems of Week 2 of the fantasy football season. But unfortunately, last night, another snap occurred during the Thursday night matchup between the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Many of our fantasy rosters have already been half-dusted. The casualties were Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Christian McCaffrey, and Cam Newton. Yes, many of our rosters are already so hurt thus far in only one game going into Week 2. But on today's episode, we're going to be going over my 6 hidden gems in order to help you reconstruct your lineup to pick up a W by the end of the week. In order to get those hidden gems, we have to use the fantasy realm in order to bring back our championship lineups. This time around, we're going after players that are owned in less than 50% of leagues. We know exactly how good these players are. We know their skill. We know where they play. We know our mission. Whatever it takes. Hey guys, how's it going? Alrighty, so we're talking about my hidden gems of the week, and yes, the Thursday night matchup last night, the snap knocked out a lot of players. Chris Godwin got out alive, and DJ Moore, Greg Olsen, they had themselves some very successful weeks. Curtis Samuel even had a good week, but many casualties. A lot of inaccurate quarterback play, a lot of dodgy reffing. But on today's episode, we're going over my hidden gems of Week 2, and I'm going to explain to you guys how I've constructed the Fantasy Gauntlet in order to be able to perhaps salvage this week that may be already doomed. We're going to go to 6 different locations, find 6 different prospects that are definitely available in your leagues, and we're going to help you try to pick up a W this week. All right, so beginning with my Mind Stone of this week, Ted Ginn Jr. Okay, so here's the thing about Ted Ginn Jr. Ted Ginn's been in the league for, 13 years? This is his 13th season in the National Football League. He's jumped around quite a bit. But recently, he's been with the New Orleans Saints. For many of you who remember last season, he only played 5 games during the regular season because of an injury that he sustained in Week 4. And then eventually he came back, joined the Saints during the playoffs, and had a pretty decent run as a contributor, as pretty much the number 2 wide receiver of this team. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar of what Ted Ginn did just this last week with the Saints on Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans, it's really important to point this out because a lot of people kind of just look over it. They think, okay, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jared Cook, that's it, nothing more. But the Saints, they present a bunch of value very sneakily. And I think Ted Ginn is probably a guy that is going very, very under the radar in terms of percentage owned and his usage in fantasy football. And I understand many of your leagues won't need to use Ted Ginn Jr., but just keep this in mind. He's owned in only 13% of Yahoo fantasy leagues as of right now. And last week, he played 74% of the offensive snaps for the New Orleans Saints and had 7 targets, 7 receptions, and 101 receiving yards to put up a pretty good fantasy week all in all. Now, the thing that I wanted to go ahead and look and kind of get a little bit of an understanding was just how well or how much usage Ted Ginn was getting last season. Because obviously, as he gets older and age becomes a relevant factor in terms of his speed, because he's been known as a speedster in the past, has Ted Ginn been slowing down over the last couple of years? Last season, prior to his injury, during the regular season, Ted Ginn played 5 games. In one of those games, he had gotten injured and he was pulled from that game. So I'm not going to count that game. In the 4 other games during the regular season, Ted Ginn averaged 11 fantasy points per game as the number 2 wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints after Michael Thomas. Now, obviously, the number 2 wide receiver of the Saints, it's a little bit different than a couple years back. When they had Michael Thomas and Brandon Cooks, it was a different experiment. They threw the ball heavily. Now they are going and trending towards playing tough defense and running the ball heavily and chewing clock. So, sure, Ted Ginn is a couple years out of his prime. 2017, he was an 800-yard receiver, had a handful of touchdowns, and was a pretty good contributor in this offense. And I still think that he can continue to do as such going into 2019 as long as he can stay healthy. Because what we've seen from Ted Ginn and Drew Brees trusts him a lot. If we just go back to the playoff game against the Rams, when they were getting down to the wire late in the 4th quarter, who did Drew Brees throw and uncork that bomb to? It was to Ted Ginn Jr. to get them into field goal range. Obviously, some other stuff took place and didn't go their way. But when Drew Brees needs a clutch reception, He goes to Ted Ginn. Even on Monday night, he exactly did he demonstrated the exact safety and trust within Ted Ginn on a 3rd and short situation in order to get a first down so that this team could at least continue to move on and get that field goal. Ted Ginn, over the top on 3rd and short, a nice 40-yard bomb. And guess what happened to that cornerback that blew the coverage? He got fired. He literally got cut from the Texans. They literally got him onto the plane, and they say, listen, buddy, you let Ted Ginn catch a 40-yard bomb over you. And unfortunately, yes, we owe you $10 million this season, but we're going to have to let you go. And they let him go. No joke. So as of right now, Ted Ginn, sure, he may not be started this week, but he's a guy within a very good offense as the number 2 wide receiver. Sure, Traquan Smith may have had that touchdown, but we know that as this season continues, Ted Ginn will be relied upon more and more with Drew Brees as a safety blanket and a guy that he trusts within this offense. So I think as a hidden gem, using my mind, Ted Ginn is not a bad option, and I think for sure you're not starting him this week, but have him on roster because in one of these juicy matchups, especially against the NFC South, Ted Ginn will succeed, and he will be able to fire off in these shootouts. Anyway, that's my Mind Stone. Let's move on to the Power Stone this week. Where did I find this week's Power Stone, Morag? We went and we found Donte Moncrief. Now, Donte Moncrief is owned in exactly 50% of leagues. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to cut some slack. Donte Moncrief, you can make this list today. You are a hidden gem. As my Power Stone, let me explain to you exactly why I like Donte Moncrief going forward, even after the abysmal performance that the Pittsburgh Steelers presented in Week 1 on Sunday Night Football. We all know that the entire offense was terrible, and that does not exclude Donte Moncrief. The guy had 10 targets, only captured 3 receptions for a total of 7 receiving yards. Donte Moncrief, wasn't any special. It's not like he was the shining star and we have to pay attention to that. Absolutely not. But the thing that we want to pay attention to is his usage in the offense. Donte Moncrief played 90% of offensive snaps, tied just as many snaps, 62 offensive snaps, with Juju Smith-Schuster. So he's on the field as their number 2 wide receiver, clear as day. So going into Week 2 against the Seattle Seahawks, who got completely destroyed by John Ross, Tyler Boyd, and Andy Dalton, I truly believe Donte Moncrief as the number 2 wide receiver of a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that needs to exact some revenge and was given 10 targets last week. If you can consistently get a good 8 to 10 target range as a number 2 wide receiver on a respective team, especially on a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have immense value in fantasy football. And I think going forward, especially into this good matchup, there could be some success. There could be Donte Moncrief turning some heads and making some noise this coming week in Week 2. That being said, we know Donte Moncrief hasn't been an exceptional wide receiver in his career. We can go back to his days in Indianapolis when he was a red zone monster for Andrew Luck, catching 7 touchdowns in 9 games. Just recently with the Jacksonville Jaguars, it wasn't great. Obviously, it had to do with the quarterback play of Bortles and Kessler, but still, Donte Moncrief can produce with a large volume of targets. He's a receiver that is great in the red zone, decent with deep ball, and honestly, is kind of sliding underneath the radar in terms of fantasy value. So I'm just saying, guys, pick him up, have him on your bench. There's a pop-off week ready to happen. That is my Power Stone for this week. Moving on, let's talk about my next Reality Stone. Here we go. The next stone, the next hidden gem for this week. Many of you may have been like, Andrew, you forgot to talk about this guy. No. Listen, I didn't forget to talk about this guy. I know what I'm doing. He is a hidden gem. 34%. He's only 34% owned in fantasy leagues in Yahoo. How is that possible, guys? What are we doing? Why hasn't everyone picked up Mecole Hardman right now? Sure, I didn't mention him on my Monday video, but I did not know that Tyreek Hill was going to be out for 6 weeks. This is incredible. The reality of the situation. Tyreek Hill is going to miss significant time with Sammy Watkins as the number 1 wide receiver. You still have Travis Kelce. You still have Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy in that backfield. Who's the number 2 wide receiver on an offense that threw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards last year and doesn't look to be slowing down anytime soon? It's Mecole Hardman. The guy came into the game last week and played 78% of offensive snaps. Now, yes, you could say, Andrew, he didn't catch a ball. That's absolutely fine. As long as Mecole Hardman is the number 2 wide receiver and he's going to be on the field, what do you think Andy Reid's going to do? Andy Reid's going to let this guy use his 4.3 40 speed, uncork a massive bomb from Patrick Mahomes and get behind the defense and score touchdowns this week against the Raiders secondary that is completely destroyed. A player got carted off during the game on Monday night, and Jonathan Abram has a shoulder injury. I think he's gone for quite some time. They're going to be struggling in the secondary for the Raiders this coming week. And I'm telling you, Mecole Hardman is Tyreek Hill Jr. I talked about Mecole Hardman as a hidden gem many months back when I did my rookie hidden gems that nobody watched. But for those of you who paid attention to that, and maybe you can go watch that right now, this guy was a second-round pick, the 56th overall selection out of Georgia. The last good Georgia wide receiver was A.J. Green. And you know how many years back that was. Even at Georgia, this guy had 35 receptions only for 543 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. He wasn't an exceptional player. He wasn't an All-American. But his speed dictates everything. In this scheme, with Andy Reid, having so many pieces and so many Swiss Army knives that he could use all around his offensive formations, Mecole Hardman is Tyreek Hill Jr. and was drafted to, just in case Tyreek Hill got into those off-the-field issues, he would supplement and join this offense and be that answer for the deep ball. And I really do believe going into week 2 of the season against the Raiders, I'm starting him. I'm starting him in every league I have an opportunity to do so. Please go and pick him up. Go literally right now. Open a new tab. Go to your fantasy league. Pick up Mecole Hardman, because for the next couple weeks, this guy's the number 2 wide receiver of this team with deadly speed over the top. I cannot see this guy avoiding success. He is 100% in line to have a fantastic next couple of weeks, and I can't be more excited about it. That's the reality of the situation. Moving on. Alrighty, here we go. Now, we jump it from Mecole Hardman to a guy that I am losing my mind over. Yes, to Travis Benjamin. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Andrew, what? Travis Benjamin is owned in literally, when I looked at the stat, 0% of leagues. So it's less than 1% of leagues in Yahoo Fantasy. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, why are we talking about Travis Benjamin? Doesn't he just do like punt returns and, come in every now and then as a receiver? Sure, he does. But as of right now, there's no Melvin Gordon. There's no more Hunter Henry. And there's also a potential that Mike Williams is going to be missing this Sunday's game against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. As I see it, as of right now, Mike Williams probably going to miss the game. And what is that going to open up? That's going to be opening up an opportunity for another receiver or receivers to potentially have a breakout game in Detroit this week. Now, you may be wondering, who is the number 2 wide receiver of the Chargers? Is it Travis Benjamin? Is it Dontrell Inman? There are multiple guys there. Those are the only 2 that had a decent amount of offensive snaps and reps once Mike Williams went down with an injury. This is my entire argument for this situation. Okay, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time that Phillip Rivers drops back in the pocket, looks for Travis Benjamin running a 9 route behind the secondary, and breaks a huge touchdown. I'm not saying you should absolutely start this guy, but if Mike Williams is to consistently have a nagging knee injury for the next couple of weeks, Travis Benjamin is a guy that, I'm not kidding, is going to have value. We've seen him be a good wide receiver in seasons past when he is given a good amount of targets. This offense has not used him as a receiver in the last couple of years because they've had Tyrell Williams, because they've had Mike Williams, because they've had Keenan Allen, Gordon as a number 2 receiver out of the backfield. You have Eckler still. You had Hunter Henry or Antonio Gates. There are so many other mouths to feed. Now that there are so many people out, Travis Benjamin has a very, very good opportunity. It's only a matter of time. I'm telling you. I'm excited. I'm excited, guys. All right, moving on. Let's talk about my next hidden gem for the week, the Space Stone. All right, we have Josh Allen on today's Space Stone. Here's the thing. Josh Allen's only owned in 38% of Yahoo leagues as I'm currently telling you this. Here's the thing. Josh Allen is not Dak Prescott. He's not going to play against the New York Giants defense and throw for 4 touchdowns unless he's playing against the Dolphins. If you guys want to go look at game scripts, Josh Allen versus the Dolphins last year, he was incredible. Just imagine what he's going to do this year. Moving on. This week he plays against a very favorable matchup in my eyes, playing against the New York Giants. Whether it's on the ground or through the air, I really do believe Josh Allen is a good quarterback in fantasy football. We have to preface that. Because in terms of completion percentage, 60 some odd percent here and there, turning over the ball, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, that's going to hurt you. But in fantasy football, this guy still manages to figure it out, whether it's his 38 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown late in the game or a passing touchdown to John Brown with a deep ball. Josh Allen seems to manage to figure it out. And against a very favorable matchup in my eyes, I really do believe Josh Allen's going to have a pretty good opportunity to be a functional and supportable fantasy quarterback with, how Cam Newton has recently played. Jameis Winston's been so bad. I mean, we've seen a lot of poor quarterback play as of late. And I think Josh Allen is an answer for those of you who are struggling with the quarterback position, wondering who can I really start this week, and especially those of you who are in a 2-quarterback or super flex format. I 100% want to play Josh Allen this week into this matchup. And he's the space stone because he's going to have an out-of-this-world performance. Hey! Yeah, okay. But in all seriousness, I really do think Josh Allen can figure it out. I mean, he's not going to air the ball out 90% of the time. He's going to look for, short routes here and there. But his ability to use his legs and how abysmal that defense was for the Giants last week really couldn't stop a soul. I think Josh Allen will be able to take some advantages this week. And you know what? To be honest, if Saquon Barkley scores a lot and Eli Manning scores a lot, it's even better. Therefore, he has to come out on the field and they have to consistently throw. I don't want them to hand the ball to Frank Gore. No. We don't want that. Stuff Frank Gore, stop Singletary. Let Josh Allen air this sucker out and find some fantasy value. All right, moving on to my last hidden gem of the week, the Soul Stone. We're off here to Vormir. And unfortunately, Devin Funchess was the sacrifice in week 1 of the fantasy football season. Devin Funchess broke his collarbone, came off the field after a reception, holding his arm to the side, and Devin Funchess is gone. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, what happens to Chester Rogers? What happens to other receiving options on this offense? Deon Cain is a rookie wide receiver, and I'm not saying he's going to play this week. I'm not saying he's going to play next week. But I'm telling you guys, for a guy that is owned in less or just about 1% of leagues, he's owned in 1% of leagues. For a guy like that, in an offense like the Indianapolis Colts, who really do need a second wide receiver, who are going to desperately miss the contributions of a Devin Funchess, I do think Deon Cain can step up and eventually produce. I'm just telling you, it's not like it's going to happen this week, but especially because he's a rookie. But I think over time, this guy's going to win the number 2 job there. And with Brissett, with T.Y. Hilton as the number 1, he's going to have some functional value in terms of fantasy football later and throughout the season. And that's my hidden gems of the week, everybody. We had 6 hidden gems, a variety of players, guys that you may have never thought I was going to bring up. A lot of wide receivers, because to be honest, the running back position doesn't have too many hidden gems unless an injury occurs, and unless we see some a blowout. There isn't going to be much. But on this week, the gauntlet is complete. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video for the hidden gems. It's always one of my favorite videos to make, without a doubt in my mind. I always like to get nerdy with the MCU, so that's enjoyable. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please click that like button. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join the community. I'm thinking about doing a live stream. Sunday morning for sure, but maybe later today. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, which will be, I don't know, one of these times, impromptu. We'll see. See you guys. Have a good one. And pick up your hidden gems. Mecole Hardman.